people. If you look around Speaker's Corner, all of these politicians, all of these speakers are speaking about religion. Do you honestly believe they're going to end up in heaven? Can you imagine a heaven with Diane in it? My friends, with so much happening around the world, with so much happening, with wars, murder, mayhem, invasions of Libya, invasions of Iraq, invasions of Afghanistan, invasion of Pakistan, this woman wants to come and tell you that her God is better than anyone else's God. We are all the same people, and the quicker, the sooner we learn to think like that, the less wars there will be. We have to stand up and fight against corruption, corrupt politicians, corrupt religious leaders, corrupt religious individuals who want to take you down a one-way road. My friends, look at the media this week. We've heard about the corruption of the media, of Rupert Murdoch's empire, whereby they pay police officers for information. Look at the corruption with News International about the phone hacking scandal, whereby a media corporation were hacking members of the public's phones, yet the police refused to investigate. Rebecca Brooks, the head of News International, gave a talk to the Select Affairs Committee, the Commons Select Affairs Committee, in 2003. In 2003, Rebecca Brooks said that they had paid police officers. How is it that when she made that statement in 2003, that she was not investigated then, that News Corporation was not investigated then, that it was on a police inquiry then? How is it now, in 2011, 8 years afterwards, they now say they're going to investigate that News International had been paying police officers? The whole system is rotten. The whole structure is corrupt. And it's not just Rupert Murdoch, it is the entire media. It is a media that tells lies to you every day, complicit with the support of the government. Why don't we ask ourselves the question? The government said Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. That's what the government said. This government, the American government. But their message would have got nowhere without BBC, CNN, Sky News, Fox. All of these mainstream media outlets were the mouthpieces for Western imperialism, for Western war propaganda. Recently, we now know NATO are in Libya, the British are in Libya, the French are in Libya, the Americans are in Libya, you Europeans are in Libya. Why? It's a nice place. It's a very nice place. The media has sold you the lie. They give you a one-dimensional narrative. They don't give you both sides of the story. Now, I don't dispute that there are Libyan people who are opposed to Gaddafi. I was in Libya a couple of months ago. I returned about 6-7 weeks ago. And of course, in Libya, I met people who said we were opposed to Gaddafi. Some said we wanted reform. We wanted freedom of speech. That's what they told me, many people on the street. But they said, now that NATO has begun bombing, we are behind our government. We are behind our government. It is a sad, unfortunate situation what is taking place in Libya. It has almost become tribal. Those in the east versus those in the west. Of course you had a faction who are opposed to Gaddafi. But for Western governments to now arm that faction, to create a civil war in Libya. It is indefensible.
What about Polisario? Why didn't they go in defense of Polisario when Morocco was killing them? Why didn't they do that?
Now he says the Arab League invited them. And why do you say, he says, I don't know what I'm talking about. The Arab League invited them. Now let me show you the flaw in your argument. The fallacy of your argument. He says the Arab League invited them. And that's the narrative that the media sells to you. Sir, it was Western governments who said they wanted a no-fly zone. Western governments said, we want a no-fly zone. They went to the African Union. The African Union said, we do not support it. So afterwards, they went to the Arab League. Those slaves, those whores, those prostitutes in the Arab League, which steals the money from the Arab people, from the legitimate people, and make themselves rich. And when the Arab League said, we endorse it, then the West said, we don't want to go in, but the Arabs want us to. You bunch of fucking slippery chameleons. Lying bastards. My friend, where is Libya? Libya is in Africa. Tunisia. Where is Tunisia? Africa. Where is Egypt? Africa. My friend, we have an organization in Africa called the African Union. They represent the views and opinions and have a military to deal with the situation that took place in Libya. Hold on, sir. Hold on, sir. Hold on, sir. I'm going to get to you. Hold on, sir. We have the African Union. I want to get to you, sir. There is no rush. Sir, we're going to get to you. Allow me to develop the argument and we will get to you. The African Union, when there was problems in the Congo, who's there? The African Union. In Somalia, the African Union. When they had problems in Sudan, the African Union. When they had problems with the Kenyan election, it was the African Union. How is it all of a sudden, because the African Union does not support the Western agenda, the Western perspective on this conflict, that you have sidelined the African Union? Sir, the African Union has a mandate for Africa and also has a military capable of quashing any uprising. Tell me, sir, does the Arab League, sir, tell me, sir, what mandate does the Arab League have over Africa? What mandate, what right does the Arab League have to speak for Africa? They've got no fucking right. So you can shout the Arab League as much as you fucking like.
And Libya are in Africa.
Sorry, sir?
Egypt, Tunisia,
that's what you just said.
Are in Africa.
Of course they're in Africa.
Thank you.
So, sir, the African Union deals with Africa, not the Arab League. So don't tell me what right does the Arab League have to be mandating actions in Africa. That is my argument to you.
Gaddafi's saying he was going to do the Benghazi.
Don't tell me about Gaddafi right now. I'm asking you a question. What mandate does the Arab League have over Africa? Sir, if we're going to answer each other's questions, answer mine first. What mandate does the Arab League have? Because you know they don't have none. You're short-circuited, aren't you? There is no right for the African Union. What's your next argument for the Arab League? Your next argument is what? That Gaddafi said he was going to massacre the people. When did he say that? When did he say that? He says, that's not important to you, Ishmael. Nonsense, sir. I asked you, when did he say that? I asked you, sir, when did he say that? I asked you when he said that and what he said.
I'm on 45 minutes.
Hold on, let him. He said it. You said it. Gaddafi said he was going to massacre the people. What did he say? What did he say?
Maybe he was going to give them pancakes.
Gaddafi said during the uprising, when a rebel faction had taken arms and had seized a part of the country, he said he's going to go house to house and get rid of the cockroaches. The Western media translated that as meaning he's going to kill all the people. That's your propaganda spin on it. When he said he was going to get rid of the cockroaches, he meant the rebels. Likewise, when the rebels moved into Misrata, the rebels said about pro-Gaddafi forces, we're going to go house to house and get rid of all the rats. That's what the rebels said. But the Western media didn't say, oh, they're going to kill all the people. It's propaganda. It's Western imperial war propaganda. But now when we try to break it down for you, because we don't have the platforms of BBC, CNN, Sky News to tell the people the real truth of what's going on. Instead, you want to regurgitate the lies without any context. Field more. What more do you have? 45 minutes. Tell me what Gaddafi said. He tells me about the Arab League, first of all, which has no mandate, and then tells me that Gaddafi said he's going to kill all the people. What nonsense. Gaddafi's been in power since 1969. Why would he want to commit a genocide against some people? Let me tell you, sir, in Libya, tell Libya, I just came back from Libya, motherfucker. I just come back from the fucking place. Sir, I find it so bizarre that you regurgitate Western war propaganda without any context. Sir, when I was in Libya, I met with tribal elders. I also met with Khalid Kayam, the foreign minister, the deputy foreign minister. We met with those in government. Some of the tribal elders from the Wafala tribe. The Wafala tribe has 2 million people. 2 million, almost 2 million. The population of Libya is 6 million. Now I ask you, sir, what tribes support the rebels? You don't know, do you? You haven't got a fucking clue. Because like ordinary white Western liberals, all you do is stand up and parrot what your media says. Mugabe is bad, so Mugabe is bad. If I ask you to tell me the name of 4 African presidents, you haven't got a fucking clue. They haven't got a fucking clue. And you tell me about Nelson Mandela. You tell me about Nelson fucking Mandela who left office years ago. You white Western liberals, you know everything about the world because you want to save the world. You bunch of armchair motherfuckers. You sit down by your Sky News fucking television, regurgitating, intoxicating the news.
How can you criticise the Western country?
How can I criticize?
Invited by the Arabs.
Wow. He's still talking about the Arab League. Are there any Arabs here?
What they got to do with it?
You're Arab. Sir, tell me, what mandate do you have as an Arab over Africa? What mandate do you have as an Arab over Africa? Nothing. Are there any Africans here? Where are you Africans? What organization represents Africa? The African Union. What is it? Now who should be dealing with this conflict? The African Union. My friend, you don't hear black voices, do you? You don't hear non-white people, do you? The Arabs are saying it's not theirs. But you now say, the Arab League have given us endorsements. Sir, let's look at Libya. Let's look at Libya. In 1951, Libya was the poorest country in the world. In the world, Libya was the poorest country. By now, in 2011, before you motherfuckers invaded Libya, Libya had the highest standard of living in Africa. It had the fastest growing GDP in Africa at 10.6%. In Libya, they have free health care. In Libya, they have free education. In Libya, they have free social housing. What the fuck do you think is going to happen now you motherfuckers are there? You're a bunch of imperialist motherfuckers. You're a bunch of imperialist motherfuckers. And now you try and sell the lie like you're there to do good. You're not there to do any fucking good in Libya or anywhere else in Africa or the Middle East. You are imperialist invaders. You are there because of oil. If Libya grew lemons, you wouldn't be fucking there. Bunch of fucking criminals. You're a bunch of villains. I swear I don't even know why I'm arguing with you. Because you don't even know. You really don't even know the history of Africa or what's going on. You know nothing. Nothing. If we ask the motherfucker the capital of Libya, you wouldn't even fucking know. But I know everything about Africa. They know everything about Africa. Why? Because when we discuss AIDS in Africa, they're going to tell us about, he knows about Bono. If we talk about famine in Africa, he's going to tell me about Bob Geldof. If we talk about war in Africa, he's going to talk about George Clooney. But ask the motherfucker to name one African who's a thinker, a reformist, an academic, someone who deals with these issues on the ground. You wouldn't have a clue. Tell me the name of an African intellectual. 2 African intellectuals. You haven't got a fucking clue, do you? Don't tell me Nelson Mandela and Gaddafi. Because they're all who fucking know. They're the only Africans you know. You know nothing about Africa or Asia or the Middle East. But you regurgitate this bullshit. Bullshit. My friend, my own personal position is I believe Gaddafi has been in power for far too long.
Really?
That's my opinion. I believe he should have left a long time ago. But I don't believe it's up to you, the British, to put him away simply because you want to get in there for the oil. My friend, Libya's oil. Why are you against Libya? Why are you against Libya? Because Libya owns their oil. Because Libyan oil is nationalized. Why are you against Libya? Because the Libyan banks are nationalized. The Libyan banks work for the people. That's what you're exposed to Gaddafi. My friend, why all of a sudden are you saying, oh, Gaddafi this, Gaddafi that? In the 80s you called him Mad Dog Gaddafi. But all of a sudden the West and Gaddafi became friends. I believe Gaddafi slipped. Gaddafi thought that you guys in the West were going to welcome him. Gaddafi thought that he was going to be one of you. When did they start to rehabilitate Gaddafi? Hold on, sir. They rehabilitated Gaddafi at the point when he was useful to you. During the Iraq War, you claimed you went to Iraq because of weapons of mass destruction. You spent billions of dollars trying to find weapons of mass destruction that didn't exist. And then, when you were about to announce to the world that you found nothing, you knew there was going to be fallout. So instead, Gaddafi came and said, here's some old rusty 18th century nuclear centrifuges that no one was fucking using. And the West then said, look, Gaddafi is now giving up his weapons of mass destruction. And by the way, we found no weapons in Iraq. You are so sneaky. You're a bunch of fucking rats. And you think people can't see your shit? You're right. People can't see your shit. But I see it. And all it means is for people to hear what has to be said about the conflict to educate themselves. Sorry, sir? Oh, wow. Now we move from Libya to Iraq. And the Kurds. Okay, now he says, did Saddam use chemical weapons against the Kurds? Yes! Saddam Hussein used chemical weapons against the Kurds on the 17th of March, 1988 in Halabja. They killed 5,000 people. Saddam Hussein, where did Saddam get these chemicals from? Where did Saddam get these weapons from? Now hold on, sir. Now hold on. In March, you asked me a question. In March, you made the point and I'm answering your point. In March of 1988, Saddam Hussein gassed 5,000 Kurds. Yet, in August of 1988, the American government gave Saddam Hussein the largest agricultural grant given in history up until that point. $1.5 billion the American government gave to Saddam Hussein in August of 1988. So this motherfucker again mentions the Kurds in Iraq and walked into a time. You weren't listening, were you? Now you're conveniently distracted, aren't you? Say that again. You are conveniently distracted because you don't want to address the real point, do you? If you want to talk about the first people to gas the Kurds, the first people to gas the Kurds were the British. In 1921, it was gas. The first, yes.
What were the British to gas the Kurds?
You don't know?
No.
You didn't know that Winston Churchill? You don't know that Winston Churchill authorized the use of mustard gas against the Kurds in 1921? Don't you know that? Sorry, sir? Can I go and meet you? No, unfortunately not. I'd have liked to have. But sir, are you not aware that the British were the first people to gas the Kurds? Because the Kurds had declared and wanted their independence. The Kurds were fighting against the British. So when you divided and created the Middle East, you said this will be Iraq, that will be Iran, that will be Turkey, that will be Syria. You deliberately left off Kurdistan. That's why the Kurds are now separated around region and still fighting. You don't even know your own fucking history, do you? You don't know your own fucking history, do you? Because you must think you can put your black man with gold to
not the Iraqis, not the Iranians.
Yes, I do smoke weed, but fuck you.
They don't fucking gas the Kurds.
They ain't got a fucking clue, have they?
Only the British to gas the Kurds. Yeah. The Iranians, the Iraqis, the Kurds, murdered hundreds of thousands of them for 100 years.
Without undermining the Kurdish people, without undermining the Kurds, you just jumped on that. Why don't we talk about a million Iranians? Why don't we talk about 1 million Iranians who were killed during the Iran-Iraq war. 1 million Iranians. People who were gassed using chemical weapons by Saddam Hussein. The Iranians were gassed, not just the Kurds. Not just the Kurds. But when Saddam Hussein gassed the Kurds, when Saddam Hussein gassed the Iranians, he was doing it on the say-so of the West. And so you never talk about it. You never publicize it. It's not important to discuss what Saddam did to the Iranians. Only talk about what he did to the Kurds. You bunch of hypocrites. You're so shallow. You know nothing about history. I don't defend Saddam at all. Saddam Hussein is a tyrant. Saddam deserves to go. I don't know where you're coming from. Now he wants to say I'm a supporter of Saddam. Fuck Saddam Hussein. Fuck Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein was a Western agent. Saddam Hussein came to power. Saddam Hussein came to power backed by the West. He was trained, armed, backed and financed by the West. Fuck Saddam. But all of a sudden, you mention Saddam and try to shout it out as though I'm a supporter of Saddam. My friend, you the West supported Saddam. Yes, sir.
I suppose you must know, Webster Tartley visited Tripoli about 3 weeks ago, and what he states is that
He said an individual visited Libya 3 weeks ago.
Webster Tartley, and he's been on RT and he's talked about it, and what he says that the Strauss-Kahn that got framed in New York, he was going to go to Germany and he was going to go to Libya and they were going to discuss an alternative financial system. And that the West will not accept an alternative.
The West will not accept. Sir, we know that Gaddafi was looking for a currency for Africa.
Yes.
He was looking for a currency for Africa.
Yeah.
Now think about this. Saddam Hussein, they had sanctions against him for years. Why was it important to remove Saddam Hussein at that time?
Because he had the euro.
Because Saddam Hussein was talking about buying oil, not in a dollar, but in a euro. So the dollar was threatened. And so we see, whenever the European economy is threatened, that's when actions are happening. It's by no accident that your economies are crumbling, and therefore we're seeing imperialism unveil itself. This is all it is. Whenever your economies are in trouble, and they are, and they forecast this for the last 15 or so years, they know, they recognize the growth of China and India. They recognize that China and India are buying up all the commodities. They need everything to industrialize their country. They need oil, copper, iron, lead, rice, coffee, cocoa, tea. They need all the commodities that you in the West have generally controlled. And because the Chinese are now in the picture, because the Chinese are now creating that mode of competition against the West are now invading countries to secure the resources for themselves. The same is what happened in Darfur. In Sudan, we were told genocide. Why were we told genocide? The first person to call it a genocide was Colin Powell in 2004. Why did it suit their means? Simply because the Chinese control over 70% of the concessions in the region. It was about displacing the Chinese. And all of a sudden, they get distracted, and now they talk about genocide as society. What happened? Al-Bashir eventually killed everyone. There's no more talk about genocide. Why? How did it just vanish from the media? How did it disappear in the media? This is what we're talking about. How our minds are manipulated by the media. They told us about the genocide, but didn't tell us about the conclusion in Sudan. Why? What happened? Don't you ever ask yourself the question? I thought they were collecting money. They did all these appeals in the Times, the Guardian, and all of these newspapers collecting money to stop the genocide in Sudan, in Darfur. Where is it? They've now divided Sudan into North and South. North and South. Let me give you a prophecy. What's going to happen is eventually the South is going to have some incursion in the North. There's going to be some civil war, and the West is going to blame the Christians against the Muslims. You also told us in Darfur that Muslims were killing the people of Darfur. Yet you didn't tell the world that the people of Darfur themselves are Muslim. All of the region are Muslim. crazy. They're all a Muslim. You try to frame it as Arab versus African. You control the media, so you tell all of these lies. In Libya, you passed around the propaganda that black Africans were being paid as mercenaries for Gaddafi. And what resulted in that? Those rebels in the east began butchering black Africans in the droves. In one migrant center alone, they lynched 50 black Africans in Libya as a result of propaganda which was spread. Which area is it? Around Benghazi. Around Benghazi. In the opening days, 50. They raided a migrant center. 50 in one day. In fact, you can see a lot of this evidence yourself. Just go on YouTube. Go on YouTube. There are murders taking place on YouTube. Does the ICC say they're going to indict anyone? Any rebels? How authentic are Cynthia McKinney's reports? How authentic are Cynthia McKinney's reports? I can't. Cynthia McKinney is a former U.S. Congresswoman who ran for president in America. She does a lot of activities, very active. I was with Cynthia McKinney on a boat when we were going to Gaza, and our boat was intercepted by the Israeli Navy. We were imprisoned at Ramla Given Prison, and so I know Cynthia McKinney. I know Cynthia McKinney on a personal level. Cynthia McKinney ran for president. Recently, she went to Libya also. I don't want to vouch for Cynthia McKinney's report. I don't want to, because I didn't see what they saw. All I know is when we went to Libya, we saw a lot of evidence of NATO bombing, civilians being killed. But likewise, in the process, we also saw some scenes that were fabricated by the Libyan government to make it appear as though NATO had attacked civilian areas. So I would say, to balance the picture, we have seen clear evidence that NATO has been killing civilians. But at the same time, we saw evidence that the Libyan government had also fabricated things. I'll give you an example of two scenes of which I attended in Libya. A house had been blown up, and they told us that some people had been injured in the house by missile. When we went into the room that had been blown up, we saw remnants of the missile. A TV had been melted to molten metal and plastic. The furniture had been burnt to a cinder, to a wood. You couldn't see nothing. The room was just blackened. Yet around the room were strewn children's school books burnt around the edges and children's clothes. So my logical question is, what fire or what heat, what missile could generate such heat to melt a television, turn a furniture to molten wood and plastic, yet paper survives? It was a clear fabrication of which I brought to the attention of the government. Another attack we were taken to was a missile which had landed in a field. We get to the field, and outside of the edge of the crater, we see a child's a child's bicycle, a three-wheeler, small bike, upright. And someone says, look at the bike, log it down. I said, we can't log that down because we don't know whether the bicycle was placed there. Furthermore, there's no injury to the bicycle. Furthermore, the bicycle is upright. Furthermore, the missile landed in a field where it was grass and sand. And I asked the question, which child cycles on sand? So of course we recognized there were certain scenes which had been clearly fabricated. I made that clear in my report. I denounced the original report that was written because I thought it was one-sided. I thought it was biased and partial. And I entered that peace mission, that fact-finding mission, to be objective, to be balanced, and to be honest. We cannot challenge Western propaganda and then go to Libya and then lie and support propaganda. So all we argue for is that the public are told the truth, that the public are informed about what's happening. So sir, that's a clear example for you. It is a nonsense.
I'm very impressed.
It's not to impress you, so this is how I naturally am.
Put it on YouTube.
It's wrong. Sorry, sir?
Just type up
It's not to
Ishmael
impress
Balgrove,
you.
blagrove,
That's how we are with everything that we do. That's how we are with everything.
That's right.
I'm saying to you, let's look at the war in Libya for one moment before we move on to broader politics. Let me just give you a timeline of what took place in Libya. In Libya, they had protests.
Put it on YouTube.
The people went out to protest on the 15th of February. What were they protesting about? They were primarily youth. They were protesting saying they want more housing for youth. They were protesting saying they want freedom of expression. That was on the 15th of February. On the 15th of February, Al Jazeera broadcast a report. The first report that came out from Libya. The one that went nation international. Al Jazeera said 14 people had been killed in the uprising. 14. Al Jazeera's report report said 11 of them were policemen. 11 of them. So out of the 14 people killed, 11 were police. This is very crucial in terms of evidence. Why is it crucial? Think of it this way. In Tunisia, when the people rose up in Tunisia, they called it what? A protest. When they rose up in Egypt, they called it what? Protest. When they rose up in Bahrain, protest. When they rose up in Yemen, protest. When they rose up in Saudi Arabia, protest. When they rose up in Syria, protest. When they rose up in Libya, rebels. What's the difference between a rebel and a protester? Rebels are armed. That's the difference. And if people in Scotland decided to break away from the United Kingdom, and some of them were armed, don't you think the British sending its military to quell the uprising, claiming that they're going there to save civilians? Sorry, sir? How am I defending Gaddafi by giving you a timeline? Imagine, he says I'm defending Gaddafi. Sir, tell me one thing, sir, tell me what I've said that defends Gaddafi. Sir, in any conflict, in any state, in any situation, when you have armed rebels, they will be put down by the military. It's not for Libya, that's how it is. But all of a sudden you've lost track of that. My friends, get back to the timeline. The 15th of February, people went out on the streets and protested.